Is it Doherty? He was principal.
You know, that's a really good question. I'm not sure the principal in the 30s there.
There's pictures. These are the different teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Students.
I love the handwriting particularly because, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've seen anyone, myself included, write recently, and
Yeah.
it's a regular chicken scratch at this point.
Here they are. Classmates.
Yes.
I can't read them, but you can read them.
Yes, so let me see here. Maybe I could read a few of these for you if you'd like, and if you'd like to tell me a little bit about any memories you have of them from school. So,
Okay.
looks like there's a number of notes you have in the margins here.
Where do you see my picture?
Oh, show me your picture.
In the S's.
S's? Alrighty. We're going to jump to the end here. It's Palladini's, Palumbo's. Oh, that's the girls' basketball, so it's back a little bit here. Verna, Woodworth.
I'm on that side of the top.
Oh, there you were. Margaret Mary Simpson. I guess you had another nickname before, Margie.
Yeah, some of the kids at school call me Margie. But I've been Peg ever since I got out.
And do you know what was the origin of Peg? It's a mystery.
Who knows?
Who were some of your friends in high school?
Emma Rabioli. Emma Veluti.
Emma Rabioli?
Well, she's married Rabioli.
Oh, I see.
Emma Veluti. Rosemary Tracy.
Emma Veluti right here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was buried 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
We've been pals since second grade.
Wow. And what was the other name?
Oh, the other one, she was a year ahead of me, Helen Maccheroni.
Oh, I see. So she wouldn't be in this yearbook.
No.
Looks like all kinds of fun things from your senior year. It's the basketball team all marked up with all the people, right?
Yeah.
Or football team rather, and girls basketball. Did you play any sports in high school?
Girls didn't play that many sports.
Yeah, it's definitely much more of a recent thing with.
Yeah, it really is more of a recent.
So let's see. So 1940. So a lot of things happened in 40 and 41 locally. So there was the big Valentines Day blizzard in 1941. That was a big thing locally with very, very heavy snowfall. I've heard stories about.
And then the war.
Obviously, yeah, the outbreak of World War II.
Yeah, yeah.
How was that locally? With obviously that would have been a current event your senior year of high school with the ongoing war in Europe, but no American involvement in that yet.
The kids, signed up.
Mm.
And I was one of the ones we needed sweaters during the war.
Mm. And you still do quite a bit of knitting. You were showing me earlier your
that's
Afghans.
all I can do, but I made that big Afghan that's on the chair.
Oh, yes.
And I made all kinds of fancy ones for baby. So.
Actually, would you like to show the piece you were just working on for the camera? It's just, I think, just a little bit out of the frame at this moment. Wow, very nice piece. And you said you make this for Dana-Farber?
Dana-Farber, but it's not made. It's 36 inches wide, but I gotta go 60 inches long.
That's a pretty long
It's a blanket.
piece. Right.
When the hospice patients come in with cancer, they're cold, and if they pass off, the family can have the Afghan, or if they go home, they can have the Afghan.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I usually then put fringes on it. But it gets cumbersome.
Mm. Yeah, I bet when it gets 60 inches long, that's pretty lengthy. Stretching across the room.
Yeah, I did hospice volunteering after I retired, and I belonged to St. Vincent de Paul Society.
Right.
I was treasurer for a number of years.
Oh, I see.
I was a Eucharistic minister at church and a pastoral minister, because that's how I knew up here. I used to bring communion up here.
That's wonderful.
And I did a 3-point landing in the middle of the altar the year before I retired.
Jeez.
I always wore high heels.
Right.
And I got my heel caught in the fringe on the rug.
Oh, goodness.
And I did a good 4-point landing.
Oh, goodness.
The Suburban went one way and the host went the other.
Hopefully not too many bruises or bumps from that one.
Yeah, I do. But I did hospice volunteering out of the Framingham Hospital. And you had to sign up that you would give them 6 hours a week each patient. You could give it all at one time, or 2 hours at a time, or 3 hours. And then it got to the point the family would like to go out for dinner on a Friday night or show. And I would be driving from Wellesley or Woburn home at 12:30, 1 o'clock, all the back roads alone at night. And I couldn't do it. I did it for about a year, and I said, this is too lonely. So,
yeah.
So I gave up the night, but I said I'd do the days just around like Bellingham, Milford, Hopkinton. I wouldn't go to Wellesley or all of that.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a trek to get over to Wellesley or Framingham from Franklin.
But there was one man in Milford. I used to go to him on a Wednesday afternoon, and when I knock on the door, the wife would open. She said, he's waiting for you. Loved to play cards. And for money, he would have matchsticks. And he always accused me of cheating. But I went to him for about 6 months, and then he passed away. I went to more funerals of different religions. Jewish, Protestant, Jehovah. The funniest one I ever went to was in Hopkinton. The daughter was an artist. It was on a Sunday afternoon. I was dressed up, and the husband ran a shop, and his secretary came. She was dressed up. We stuck out like sore thumbs. The daughter had all her artist friends. They had dungaree overalls, farmer overalls, and barefoot, rolled up pants up to the knee. Oh, God. And we stuck out like sore thumbs. But we enjoyed listening to them. They sang, they danced. This was a funeral.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a pretty remarkable experience and a very, very important experience.
I have.
Being involved in that kind of hospice volunteering like that.
I did.
And also a pretty fascinating experience, getting a chance to encounter so many different groups of, different religious groups and also, as you mentioned, the artists gathering in Hopkinton. Was work in medicine and caring for people something that you knew you wanted to do from a young age, or was it something that kind of just came about as you got involved in a career?
It just came about because then, I got to the point up where I was a supervisor. I did hiring, I did firing, and I had charge of 3 male buildings with 60 men in each building, and had to teach some of these young boys body inspections, what they were looking for. Kind of an embarrassing deal, but first thing in the world. But the only problem I ever had at Wrentham, the only severe accident, I was in one of the male buildings, and one of the clients was acting out. And he gave me a shove, and down the whole flight of stairs I went. My back hit the whole metal riser all the way. They took me to Norwood Hospital, never fractured my back.
Wow. Remarkable.
It was remarkable.
That could be a career-ending injury for a lot of people.
The only thing I think I did injure was a nerve, because that's the only place I get cold is down the middle of my back.
How about that? That's interesting. So, just because of that.
But my girlfriends and I used to go dancing 5 and 6 nights a week.
Wow. Where would you go dancing most of the time?
Well, a couple times we'd go to Mosley's, but we went Rhode Island way.
Woonsocket or Providence or one of the other places down there?
Once in a while we'd go to Woonsocket to, I can't think of the name, but it was always Rhode Island way. Providence, Pawtucket. That's where the dances were.
Yeah? Whereabouts in Pawtucket? What were the big dance halls when you would go dancing?
Arcadia.
The Arcadia?
Oh, Lord, yes.
What sort of dances would they have there?
Waltz, foxtrot, jive, you know, the jitterbug.
Right. All kinds of great variety.
Yeah. Yeah, I won a couple of dance contests.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Providence or the
Oh yeah, just in the bottom.
area
You
as
get
well?
like a couple $100, you know,
that's
that
fun.
type of deal.
That's really fun.
Yeah. And then lots of times on Sundays we'd go to clubs, Fall River, and dance all afternoon.
Right. Would you usually drive there or take the train?
Oh no, we drove. We
drove.
took turns driving.
That's great.
I
Probably a
drove.
little less traffic than today, so a little
Oh,
quicker to get
God.
there.
Yeah,
You know, every now and again you go to downtown Franklin, it looks like it could be downtown Boston, the amount of traffic
and
there.
then there was a place in, it was on, we're on 295. I'm trying to think, it was owned by a club, insurance. It was way down in Rhode Island, but we went down 295 and got off and went. But we used to, and then also, card shark. I'm going to show you. We were written up in the Milford News.
No kidding. There you are, Peg Simpson.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to show it for the camera here.
See, Helen's,
Got a newspaper clipping. What year is this? What year is the article?
doesn't it say on there,
Let's see.
the date on the top somewhere?
Oh, it looks like it was 2012.
Yeah.
February 17th, 2012.
Yeah, because Helen Morrissey had dementia and they were hiring girls. And this woman that did this, made it from Milford News. She was an ex-school teacher from Attleboro.
Oh,
and
really?
she used to work days with Helen. And because we played cards, we'd go to each other's house, you know, each week. She decided to contact the Milford News and had that written up about us. The only other person out of our group that's living is Ethel Peasy.
Ethel Kesey.
Ethel Peasy on Massachusetts Street.
Do you still play cards with her sometimes?
No, she's in a wheelchair. She's
What a great get together you'd have with your friends.
Yeah, we did. My friend Karen across the street has a dog, and she comes over and he loves to get up on the couch. He get up on the couch and pull the pillow down. Isn't that adorable?
That's a pretty funny photo right here of the neighbor's dog coming by and collapsing on the couch here. I will attest, it's a very comfortable couch.
Well, you know, when I was moving here, I knew it was small. I lived at Glen Meadow for 42 years.
I see. And when did you move over to Park Terrace here?
And they raised my rent for a one-bedroom apartment to $14.95. Well, I couldn't.
That's a little steep.
So I put my application in June, and every week I'd stop. Did my name move? I was 30-something. But they pushed me up because I used to, as they said, I worked for the St. Vincent de Paul.
Right.
And I used to bring checks over.
Oh, yeah.
So they pushed me up. So I had to get rid of my dining room set. I gave it to one of the clients on St. Vincent de Paul. She had 3 children, but she had no dining room table. I gave my hutch to another person, and I gave a neighbor a 3-piece living room set, a couch and 2 chairs and a coffee table. And I had a lot of figurines, but I could never take them here. This place is too small. So I had them in a big shopping bag, and I was putting them out at the dumpster, you know, for somebody to take. And some man was throwing stuff. He said, "Are you getting rid of those?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm moving, I can't take them." He said, "My 2 boys would love those." He said, "They're 8 and 6. I said, "Well, take them." After supper that night, my doorbell was ringing, and I looked out, I could see the little heads and the mother. They came to thank me, and each one had a little cupcake.
Oh.
I thought that was...
That's very sweet.
I thought that was priceless. I often wonder if they still have them.
Yeah. So how many years have you been over here now? So you were at Glen Meadows for 42 years.
I moved here, it'll be 3 years.
3 years.
Just 3
Wow.
years.
It's not too long.
No. No, I always told my nephew, I said, you wait, they'll call me the day before Christmas and I'll move in a snowstorm. They called me the week before Christmas and they moved January 8th in a snowstorm.
You're very good at predicting things, evidently.
Yeah. Oh, I moved on a Friday because I had 2 friends, Joanne Brandenburg, she's in real estate, and Patty Costello. And they were telling me I should bring my dining table here, I should bring my hutch here, and I figured I'd move on a Friday because they were working, I wouldn't have them under my feet.
So you were telling me just a moment ago about the dances you would go to with your friends down in Fall River and Pawtucket and sometimes Woonsocket and places like that. You also, before we started filming today, you also told me about your gift from 1950. I was wondering if you could show everyone your pretty nifty flower pot you got there from the dance. Well, you were showing me just before.
A dance contest?
No, the musical flower pot you were showing me.
Vanilla. That was our class band that we voted in, and the song was In the Mood, and he played at Lake Pearl next night after we graduated.
Wow. Did you get a chance to go? That must have been something really special.
It used to be $1.25 to get in Lake Pearl.
I wish it was still that way. Were there lots of dances at Lake Pearl on a pretty regular basis? Naturally, these days
went
there's
every
a lot
week.
of things, but
We went every week. All the big name bands. Glenn Miller, Artie Shaw, Benny Goodman, the
and
Dorsey
they all played
brothers.
there in person.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
The height of my experience in life is at Old Orchard Beach, out the dance hall out on the end of the steel pier. I had a dance with Woody Herman.
Oh wow. That's one for the that's one for the diary right there.
Yeah, and he had 2 left feet.
Really, not any good. Sounds like you were the much more nimble dancer.
Yeah. But we used to go, and you know it's funny. The fellows used to call us the ladies. There was 4 of us. We went together, and we came home together. We didn't. Oh, can I take you home? I'd like to meet you. You know that type of a deal. You didn't know who the hell you were getting in with. We stayed together. And they'd say, meet us such and such a place, we'll buy you coffee. We never separated.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's what we did. That's why we all lived to be such long ages. You know, you didn't know who these people were.
Yeah.
Petrarca was one of them. You know, the big gambler from Federal Hill.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was one of the dancers we danced with.
Was he two left feet, or was he any good?
He was good. He was good. You couldn't beat that gang from Federal Hill. They were the
And
dancers
the moves?
with their hand-tailored suits. They were sharp dressers. Of course, they all robbed everybody.
I guess it's easy to afford dressing sharply if you're if you're a crook. So tell me more about growing up in Franklin. So you grew up in Franklin, obviously during a very interesting time in American history with the Great Depression.
Yeah.
What was that like here in Franklin?
It was quiet. A lot of the stores down on Main Street are gone. You know, as you come over the bridge, coming up 140, that big long building, there used to be a Stop and Shop. Grant's.
Right, and is that the building where Acapulco's restaurant is today? That side of the street right there, that long building.
Yeah. And where after Victor Pizzini, that next place is a restaurant that used to be Dana's Drugstore. and there was a dress shop, and there was a barber shop, Joe Vian's barber shop, and the post office used to be there where Cataldo had a clothing store after he took over with a post office when they moved across the street to their new place. And Connie's drugstore was up further. And where the bank is on the corner, that was an empty spot.
The Bank of America branch, or the Dean Bank currently?
Dean Bank.
Dean Bank. I see. So that was an empty spot right there?
That was an empty spot, and that's where they sold all the fireworks.
Oh, interesting.
For 4th of July.
Right.
That's where you went and bought.
Was it just an open lot right there, or
it was an
there?
Open lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So downtown has certainly changed quite a bit through the years. Not only the businesses, but even so many buildings have filled in so many places.
Well, that's like on the other side of the bridge, where the restaurant is. There was a shoemaker there. He was from Medway. He used to ride the bus back and forth. And coming up with Benelli's had a diner, and then Bullock had a little office.
And that's the little office that was basically right on the overpass over the, or right next to the overpass over the train tracks, right?
Yeah.
And what was that office used for usually? Was it just a few different small businesses
over the years? Oh no, it was Bullock's.
The oil company?
Yeah, the oil company.
Oh, I see. So people would place their heating oil orders there and then have them fulfilled from the tanks over on Cottage Street.
And then Benelli's Diner was...
Did you have a favorite business downtown?
No, not really. Where the, before the barber shop, where they sell tuxedos or red tuxedos, that used to be Kaplan's shoe store, and then she had a dress shop, and I worked for her.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
So you would do sort of seamstressing stuff with some of the dresses there?
Yeah.
That must have been very interesting.
It was.
So that would have been her shoe shop, and then just a couple doors down, Victor Pizzini's shoe shop, which is obviously still up and running today.
He was further down.
He was further down?
Yeah. Because Florence Mason had a store there, and Valley opened a gift shop, not a gift shop, a
jewelry shop?
Jewelry shop up there on Main Street. And I think there was a barber shop in there somewhere, I'm not sure.
Has the Valley's jeweler place always been in that building where it is currently, on the corner of Main Street
and
M Street, or was it in a separate building?
He moved up further.
And what was your street like growing up? I heard from Vicky that you actually remember a number of the people that lived on your street when you were growing up, in terms of some of the houses along there. I may be mistaken about the story, but...
Well, Mucheronis were up on the corner.
And
Joe used to work for the town, but he married a girlfriend and he died. And Nick's was Tuttle's, and they had a big collie, and anytime there was a little rumble of thunder, down through the field he came, scratching on our door to get in, and he went in the closet until the thunderstorm was over. And then it was Mucheroni, and upstairs Joanne and John Tavalone. When they got married and they came, they lived upstairs. And then Carter Lesso, he was a chef in one of the big restaurants in Saugus. Then it was Vendetti's, and then it was, I'm trying to think who lived there. And then Woloski's and Sampson's in the corner.
And was your family, when you were growing up, were there already one generation of people in Franklin, or was your family relatively new to the Franklin area?
Oh,
was it a few generations back?
My grandfather lived in Franklin. He was from Ireland. And then I had aunts that lived on Marvin Avenue, McNally's.
What had your grandfather done for work when he came from Ireland to America?
They worked on the railroad. My mother's mother died when she was 3 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
And her sister and her husband lived in Franklin, and he worked on the railroad, but he was going back to Ireland because he had a big farm over there. So she took my mother and aunt and the two uncles to Ireland. My mother lived over there for 14 years.
Wow, so effectively she'd grown up as Irish.
And then she came back to this country.
Right. That must have been very interesting. And so she came back.
And then the McHales, remember, do you know the McHales?
The name certainly sounds familiar from my reading on town history. And
up on the other end of town, John McHale, Norman McHale.
The names certainly sound familiar. I don't know them too well, but...
Well, their father worked on the railroad, and when there'd be a storm, he'd come and he'd stop at our house to leave his lunch, maybe at 5 o'clock in the morning. And he walked all the way from Moore Avenue down through the Common, all the way down Union Street.
Pretty long trek.
Yeah, but people walked those days.
Right.
You didn't have a car.
And you mentioned that there was also bus service in town as well. Bus up to Medway?
Yeah, bus to Medway, bus to Woonsocket, bus to Milford.
I wish we still had that. We have the Gotcha bus now, which is obviously a nice convenience, but it doesn't really go too many places beyond a sort of limited loop in downtown and over by Stop and Shop.
Because you used to go to Woonsocket on Saturdays on the bus for a quarter.
Wow. That's a pretty affordable bus ride.
Yeah, it was the Johnson bus line.
Interesting. So a private bus company.
You went to Milford, I think 50 cents. In Boston for $1.
The best deal of the bunch.
Yeah. Because I used to drive to, after I got my license, I used to drive to Boston on Saturdays, park at Park Square and go shopping.
And so, in the 40s and 50s, did many people commute between Franklin and Boston? These days, so many people commute.
Yes, they did. You could go a round trip to Boston, maybe $4 on the train.
Wow. So people would work at, for instance, banks or big companies down in the city, and then I'm guessing many people also worked here in Franklin, maybe more than today, perhaps.
Yeah, oh God, yes.
What were some of the big companies in Franklin that you knew of that folks were working on?
There was the Clark Color McDermott Mill. There was where the yarn place down the crossing, think of the name.
Down close to where the DPW is now on Hayward Street.
Yeah, there was a mill there, and then down at the crossing, it was Haywood's Mill.
I see.
And those were the mills in Franklin.
I guess a number of people worked at all of those places. And
yeah.
Presumably also Garlic Farms must have had a fair number of people working there too.
Yeah. Garlic's has really grown.
Yes. I'm guessing it was nothing like the large operation that it is now in the 1950s.
But they've done a lot for Franklin.
They've been very public spirited throughout the years, and obviously still a very big employer these days.
And then there used to be band concerts all summer long, once a week at the Common.
What sort of bands would play at the Common?
Bands, you know, regular bands.
Like big band jazz or other things like
not,
that? Or?
Not jazzy ones, but, you know, band concerts had.
Right.
That's it.
And so tell me a little bit more about your work at the Wrentham Development Center, or I guess that's what it's called nowadays. It was the Wrentham State School,
we don't call it retarded. It was physically and mentally handicapped. Well, taught them how to get dressed, how to feed themselves.
So, very important work.
Yeah.
And it must have been a very bustling place, because naturally these days there's some, in my experience going over there, there's some activity still there. There's still a few sort of facilities there that the state still runs, but a number of the buildings are kind of dilapidated at this point.
Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do with Wrentham, but I mean, there's a lot of nice buildings there.
Yeah, it'd be a shame to see it, you know, not reused for something.
Yeah, because there was females, there were 4 nurseries, 2 male, 2 female. They were like 4 to 12 or something like that. And then there was EWAL, which were all bed patients. There was girls' infirmary, bed patients, a male infirmary, and then there was 1, 2, 3, 4 female big buildings with maybe a good 100 clients, and there was 4 male buildings. K building were male, they never kept a stitch of clothes on them. A building was females, they never kept a stitch on them. O building was male school kids, schoolboys. C building were girls, and they were schoolgirls.
And what was the distinction with schoolgirls? Like people that basically had some kind of learning challenge or learning disability?
Yeah, they could go to school and kind of learn something.
Right. As opposed to people that really couldn't absorb much information.
And they kept the clothes on.
That must have been a very, very interesting place to work. And so you started off there as sort of like a nurse initially? Was that sort of your starting role?
Or an attendant.
An attendant, yeah.
Yeah. I was there just a year, and then I was made in charge of the building.
Mm.
And then I took an education leave. As I said, I was there a couple of years and went to LPN school. And when I came back, that was better.
Mm. With more opportunities for sort of promotion at that point when you had an LPN certification.
More money.
That's very good.
Yeah. So.
Now that experience must have changed a lot over the years. As I understand it, there was a big shift in mental health institutions and services for people with developmental disabilities
They put
around the
them out in
1960s.
group
Yes, the shift toward group homes.
Yeah.
What was that like when you were working at the Wrentham State School? Was that something?
The group home was good. I had 4 men and 4 girls, and I had charge of the one in Medfield, but I worked in the one in Wrentham on Route 1A.
I see. So it was an actual house that you.
It was a regular house. It was beautiful.
Bought up by the state.
I had a housekeeper,
Mm-hmm.
and he did all the grocery shopping and everything, and we did the housework, and I used to go to Bradley's, Snowmore Bradley's. I used to go down there to shop for clothes. I used to go down there maybe with $5,000 or $6,000 and spend it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how long did you run the group home for?
6 years.
6 years.
Then I retired.
So that was in the mid-1980s when they switched toward the group home model of things.
Yeah.
When did they start introducing group homes, and was that a big shift in how things worked at the Wrentham State School and other places like that?
Yes, it was. It was. Because when we first started with the group homes, I was still working at Wrentham, and we had one of the group homes was at, I can never remember the name of the place, on the way to Boston.
Mm.
Well, anyway, I would get a phone call, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So-and-so is not home. I'd say, when they go out, they're supposed to be back by 11. Well, I'd have to go and drive in halfway to Boston. Oh, so-and-so came home and he's got a prostitute and they're looking for money. So I said to my boss, for God's sakes, wish it on to Fernald. So they'd call me and I'd have to drive all the way into halfway to Boston.
And try to sort things out, basically?
Yeah.
Was there any really challenging situations like that with people that got lost or kind of strayed away from things and had to
No, the only
be
time
tracked
I
down,
ever
or?
lost a client, it was on a Sunday afternoon. And they found him up on Route 1, got hit by a car.
Oh.
That was it.
Hmm.
Other than that, I did perked.
That's great. And so, obviously, you've seen enormous changes in Franklin throughout the years. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen since you were growing up here in the 20s and 30s?
Main Street changing. The stores that used to be there are not there anymore.
Right. Also, an enormous number of new people. You were talking before we started filming today about
And
just the extraordinary number of transplants.
Also, down the crossing, you know where that is?
The Cottage Street?
Where
not
Willie's
Cottage
Cafe is, where Willie... All right. There used to be stores all down there.
I see. Huh. So let me just make sure I'm getting this right. So the crossing, the Union Street crossing over the train tracks
Over
there?
the train tracks. Yeah. And then there would be stores. There was a First National, there was a... Clicco had a store, there was a meat store,
And Clicco, the soda company from Millis?
No, it
Or a
was from
different...
Franklin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was houses there on the other side of the street.
And when were those torn down or moved?
Torn down.
Mm.
Torn down. That was the crossing. And down on 140 with McDonald's and all of that, in the big Y, where Glen Meadow is, that is where they used to have all the circus and all the carnivals and the firemen.
So it was a big field there.
It was a big field in the woods, and the firemen would build a great big bonfire out of railroad ties, and they'd light it.
I've seen some of the pictures. I have to say, that's one
area,
heck of a 4th of July.
that area was called the Plains.
The Plains, huh?
Yeah. That was before Fecals was there, and the car dealership was there, and the big white. There were all houses there.
Wow.
And across the street where McDonald's and everything, there was a big chicken farm, Shangro's Chicken Farm.
Shangro's Chicken Farm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I've also heard that there was, I may be getting my wires crossed in terms of the stories that I've heard, but I understand that area, I think it was probably the Plains, that kind of that area of fields which has now been redeveloped as Fico's, waiting redevelopment as something else, and the entire Shaw's McDonald's area. I've heard stories that area was used as something of an airfield too, because it was pretty flat. Was that ever something you noticed over there, that people like landing planes there? I may be getting that mixed up with a different part of town.
No. Unless an emergency or plane came down, but it was never. But that's where it had all the carnivals and all the circuses.
How many circuses?
And Benelli's opened up a market. You know where Lewis Street is?
Right.
That building there. Benelli's had a big supermarket there.
Is that the building that currently in current day businesses of Franklin has the Sherwin-Williams paint and all that stuff?
Yeah,
It's a paint store right there?
Yeah. And then what's the name of the store? After Benelli's moved out, what's the name of the place? It's down the Yellow Plaza. It's a big store, clothes and all that. Because of the W.
Oh, give me the location again?
Down on the Yellow Plaza where the Stop and Shop is. What's that big store on the corner? Well, anyway, they moved in there. Benelli's came across the street with a big job lot.
Oh, I see.
They had a store there, and they sold out to Shaw's.
Interesting. So the Brunelli's location actually occupied the Shaw's location before they put Shaw's in there?
No, big lot. That's where
I see. Yeah.
And on where the store was at Abershaw's, that was where Brooks was.
Interesting. So Brooks, was that a hardware store or was that a different kind of store?
Brooks was like CVS, that idea.
Like a pharmacy sort of thing.
Yeah, and then Shaw's bought out Benelli's and built the big store that they're in now.
Interesting. Very interesting to see the rearrangement of all the businesses in town
and
over the years.
And where Walgreens is, that was a schoolhouse
The
there.
Four Corners School, right? Which stood until, I guess it was probably 2008 or 2009 when they tore that down.
Yeah. And where the Ford garage is, there was an apartment house there.
So the Ford dealership that's now at the Four Corners, but directly opposite the street from Walgreens.
Yeah.
Interesting. That was a big apartment there of one kind?
There was an apartment house there.
Do you remember when that was torn down, roughly?
In fact, house on the corner, the next house up, I lived in.
The one, that sort of brown 2 or 3 story house that's right to the...
They moved it to...
Very interesting.
Over on the street up, I can't think of the name of the street, that's right.
It's pretty remarkable.
One time, I think it was, no, don't ask me what year, one of those great big, what do you call them? They smooth the road out.
Pavers?
Big machine. What do you call them?
Like a paving machine, a roller?
It had a roller in the front, big roller, and then off. Well, it went through the bridge.
Oh wow!
Down onto the
railroad. And crashed onto the tracks.
Down onto the railroad tracks, and that's when the Franklin trains used to go all the way to Connecticut. And of course, everybody that would get off in Blackstone and around, these big limos and buses would come to Franklin and come up B Street to go and get the people at the station, because the train couldn't go through.
I imagine it must have taken at least a few weeks to fix up the bridge.
Yeah.
Must have been a pretty significant rebuild for something like that.
But the machine that went through was what they call a steamroller.
Right.
And it was on the train that would come through like at 4:30. And when we lived on East Street, every time on a Sunday, we'd hear the train whistle. We'd all run and stand on the fence because we always knew it was a carnival or a circus coming through to Boston.
What were the circus trains like coming in?
They'd have all the things, the animals.
Very colorful trains, I'm sure.
Yeah, and help would be there, the clowns would be there, and the animals, the tigers would be roaring like mad. But see, they would come slow because they had to go through by the station up further.
I see, so they have to slow down for the station, and then they'd have to go further up to actually offload the circus.
Well, they were heading for Boston, but they were coming. See, the trains in Franklin used to go through Blackstone into Connecticut, and they'd be coming. And when we'd hear the whistles blowing, because at the crossing they had, because the man that worked the gates, he lived in Medway, and he had to come. He sat upstairs. And he had a pump to get the gates down.
Wow. Now, naturally, you would have been very young, so I'd be surprised if you remember this. But do you happen to remember any of the Franklin Sesquicentennial? I think it would be 150th anniversary of the town in 1928, when you would have been about 6 years old.
I remember that, standing up in the church square.
Wow, so you actually remember it. That's really impressive.
Yeah, and I can remember the man, his name was Leo White. He was throwing candy, and he'd keep throwing it to me and my friend. Because my mother let us go up across the square.
Right. That's pretty memorable.
yeah, I remember getting the candy.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
That was a pretty exciting moment for the town. It was a very big get-together, very big celebration.
It was, and they had the common constantly.
Another story that I've heard...
And I used to walk. I lived up there. We lived in a house on the corner for a couple of years. That's when I started school. There was an apartment in front. We were in the back, and the man that owned that big house, he lived upstairs. I don't know how many apartments now. But I walked from there in the first grade and second grade, cleared a school street to school, and came home at noontime and went back. You don't get kids walking now.
No, I know. It's it's rare to see kids walking at all. That's even high schoolers, it seems like.
Yeah.
Wow.
And walked home for lunch and went back. And then when I lived on East Street, I walked all the way up because we moved when I was third grade, but I didn't want to transfer. So I walked from East Street all the way up to School Street to go to 4th grade.
It's good exercise. Really good exercise.
Yeah.
Another story that I've heard, and I don't know if this was from the 1920s or if this was from the 1930s, but I understand that there was also a great deal of excitement at one point where one of the big German Zeppelin airships came over town, maybe even a few times, where big airships flew over town. People gathered to watch them go over.
Zeppelins, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, must be the length of this room.
Yeah, a lot longer than that even.
Yeah.
Really big.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to see any of those when you were growing up?
I saw them. We stand out and see them going over.
That must have been quite an impressive sight to see those.
Yeah, it was. So. But times sure have changed.
What are some of the changes you've noticed the most?
Traffic.
Yeah, I can say that again.
Traffic.
Sometimes I even hear stories from...
people are not as friendly.
Everyone keeps themselves more?
Not as friendly.
I have heard many people talk about both the extreme increase in traffic a lot of places, even since the 1980s, which is so much more traffic in Boston, obviously here in Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
But also that sort of lack of neighborliness that many people sort of talk about.
Yeah. And Main Street, it always was two-way. You parked on both sides of the street.
It's hard to imagine these days. Well, I suppose now we've actually returned to two-way traffic in the downtown since 2016.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier to grasp that because, you know, for a long time Franklin had that one-way traffic flow around the triangle there in downtown.
And another thing, you know where that apartment complex down on Union Street just before you go over the railroad tracks? That was a big mill.
And was it still active, I'm guessing, when you were growing up? It was still active?
3 o'clock in the morning, we're standing down on the corner of Union and East Street watching it burn.
Wow.
That was a beautiful big mill, and I've been in it since they renovated, made apartments. But the pipes are still in the up in the near the ceiling. I wouldn't like that. But see, I lived on East Street, and it was in the middle of the night, and we all got up and went down.
Was there sort of a general alarm at that point? I'm guessing Franklin must have had like a volunteer fire department
and the fire
at that point.
trucks came down our street, you know.
My goodness. And so it didn't torch entirely, obviously, when it caught fire. What year was that when that fire happened? Roughly? 1930s or 40s, or was that more recently?
No, I'd say 30s.
30s?
Yeah.
And so it basically burnt the roof off, but left did it leave the walls of the building more or less intact?
It was quite a bit of burning, like in the back, more so than in the front. But all the neighbors were up and there watching.
Wow, quite the unexpected spectacle, I suppose,
Yeah,
for the neighborhood.
True. And another busy place was Fisher Street, way down the end. It used to be an old rubber shop. I can't think of his name. It was a chicken place. That's where they used to kill the chickens and dress them.
Oh, I see. So an abattoir down at the end of the road there.
Yeah. So.
How much did the town change when Interstate 495 was built? I've seen that being a big part of the recent history of the town.
It seemed that traffic kind of slowed down a little bit, and building in Franklin slowed down.
Really? So that's interesting. So it
because
actually slowed things down.
Because Hillside Florist?
Yes.
That used to be Van Leeuwen.
And he had a big chicken farm as well, right? Or was...
No, not Van Leeuwen. Shangri-La. Van Leeuwen, he lost his place. He had, used to sell trees and all that. And that's where he built up there for Hillside.
Oh, I see. So when the highway came through, his building had to be, or his property was taken by the state.
Yeah, a lot of the houses down there were taken away.
Would his property have been close to where exit 16 is now? I think it's exit 16, the King Street exit, in other words.
Well, the first exit coming out of town, not the other one. Yeah.
And were many other people's houses or properties taken when 495 was built?
Yeah, there was a couple taken, yeah.
But I suppose in the long run, one of the things that changed, obviously, with 495 is it sort of opened the floodgates to lots of new people coming to town.
Yeah, yeah.
Were there many new folks coming to town? You mentioned your school teacher from Missouri, or was it your school teacher or a school teacher that you knew that was from Missouri?
She was a new teacher, but she married a Franklin guy.
I see.
She married John Tavalone. He used to work in the post office. In fact, his mother used to be town treasurer, Margaret Tavalone. Her pictures in there.
Oh, I see.
Margaret Wilson in the
Margaret
W.
Wilson. Oh, and I see a list of Bellingham residents too. Woodward, you said?
Wilson.
Wilson. Oh, I see. Margaret Ellen Wilson right here. Margie.
Yeah.
Oak Street, Franklin, Mass.
Yeah, her father was in the Merchant Marines, and he used to come in by train on Saturday and get off at Franklin and walk to, because Oak Street, there was their house, and then across the street where that development is, that was LaFleur's big chicken farm.
So where the Charles River Estates is, that big new neighborhood from the 90s, that was a big chicken farm at one point?
Yeah. And her father would stop at our house, and my brother would give her a ride down. In fact, it was Oak Street where he learned to drive a car.
I'm sure much quieter than Oak Street these days.
Oh, you better believe it. You better believe it.
What was where the current location of Franklin High School, the two previous high schools, the current one and then the 1971 high school.
Woods.
That was just woodlands at that point in time.
Yeah.
So it must have been a big stretch of woods right there from pretty much St. Mary's down to maybe a few houses along the way there, but
I don't know the name of the street, but that street down there.
And so as you would drive down Oak Street, heading toward Pond Street, as if you were going to go north to say Medway, what would have been on the left-hand side of the road? So the right-hand side for a lot of it was that big chicken farm. where those
Yeah,
houses are now. Was it
that's
just
it.
woods and or woods or
and
farmland?
a couple of houses.
Mhm. So much
It was
quieter.
really countrified.
Right. It's hard to imagine Oak Street these days, such a
Oh God.
such a busy roadway
Yeah,
as
it
being
is.
anything sort of like a country lane or anything like that. Now within downtown here, so you've obviously living on East Street, you've seen the downtown neighborhoods change as well. I'm guessing the changes have been a little bit less dramatic in town, but
Yeah, because I used to work in the dress stores
yes.
till 11 o'clock at night
Wow.
and walk home. Take all the money out of the register, carry it home. You wouldn't do it now.
Yeah.
You can see how times have changed.
Mm-hmm. The Franklin Housing Authority here, the Park Terrace, Northwest East Park Street area. When was this location built? Was this a farm field at one point in time?
Would you believe my brother was one of the carpenters that built these brick ones?
Really? We have him to thank for your lovely
and the
place
ones
here.
on Winter Street, that's where I went to junior high.
Really? So that was, what was the name of that school? That
Theramekov.
What was it?
Theramekov.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 7th and 8th grade there.
And then you shifted over to the high school over on the corner of Emmett
You
Street. Right there.
graduated, we had graduation,
Mhm.
and then you went to high school.
Wow.
Because when they called me here and said they had an apartment, I said, I hope it's not Winter Street, because with St. Vincent de Paul, there was always one dealer who used to meet me in the hall, screaming and everything. What are you bringing there? She mentioned somebody by name. What are you bringing food for her? She don't need it. So after the third time, I said, next time I come, if you're out here in this hall, I said, I am going to report you to the office and have you evicted. Next time I came, I was coming up the front walk, I saw her, she ran into her apartment.
And so your brother married, so
My
Carl
brother married, when he was in the service, he married a girl in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And when he wrote and said he was getting married, of course, me with my big mouth, I wrote back and said, make sure it's not some dame that's looking for a free ride to the States. But she was a lovely person, because my mother and I met them in New York.
That's wonderful.
6 o'clock in the morning.
And they must have come over by ocean liner, of course, at that
They
point in
flew.
time. They flew, really?
By plane.
Yeah.
And she was a lovely, lovely person. And I had gone over to Germany with them a few times, went to a couple of weddings with her.
What was it like visiting Germany?
It was nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice. In fact, Carl was about 7.
Mm-hmm.
Mark was just an infant. Carl was 8 because Mark was a year old. And Carl and I used to drive into the center of town, Karlsheim, and go through the stores. We couldn't read German, but we would see the pictures.
Deduce it from that.
And coming back, I took the wrong turn, and I ended up in a German army camp.
Oh.
And they wouldn't let me out because they wanted to know all about Boston and Massachusetts. God. Oh, they gave us coffee and
Wow.
a snack.
Well, it sounds like a very friendly encounter with the German army.
It was. Yeah, we had gone to 3 weddings over
Wow.
there. And one of the weddings, when we were coming, because I always rented a car,
Mm-hmm.
I, being a single when I had the more money, the pig, the sow, she had a set of twins. And they named one Mark and one cow. But over there, no matter what relative you weren't, you knocked on the door, they opened the door, they hand you a bottle of beer and a shot of whiskey.
Well, it's a good way to get everyone talking real quick.
But it was nice over there, and they treated us wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, so
That's like the time as I said, my mother lived over in
Ireland,
for
right.
14 years. So she had been in this country about 50 years when I took her over for a trip.
Mm-hmm.
And they had all kinds of parties every night for us.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you drove on the opposite side of
Right.
the road, and I had the most hardest time to get around the roadways.
Oh, I bet.
And there was a cop there with a big bullhorn, and he was yelling for everybody to stop. and let the Yankee go around her way. My mother was so embarrassed, she slid down in the seat of the car.
Oh, goodness. Shrinking her view in the seat.
But it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've traveled a lot. I've been all over.
Where have you traveled to beyond Germany and Ireland?
Oh, I've been to Ireland, Scotland, England, Wales,
Wow.
France, Switzerland, Sweden, Holland, Greece.
I hoped you meant to Hollis then.
Yeah.
Greece. Where else?
And my girlfriend in Wrentham, Helen Snow,
Mm-hmm.
her son, I don't know if you heard of God Snow, he was a hockey player.
The name's very familiar, yeah.
Now he's the manager of the New York Islanders.
Wow.
Well, I used to go, I went to China with her and went everywhere with her when he was playing for the Olympics. So, what was I going to tell you? Well, it was something.
China must have been a very interesting place to go. You mentioned the Olympics. Was that the 2008 Olympics that you went to China for?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. How was that? That must have been a very interesting place to visit.
It was interesting, yeah. Very interesting. Oh, when the hockey league was on strike, he went to Russia and he was playing hockey there. And so Helen and I wanted to go to Russia, so we made all the arrangements, had plane tickets, and he came home. He said, "I'm not going back." So we were going to cancel. We wouldn't go to Russia unless there was somebody that we knew there.
Yeah.
We were so disappointed.
Well, what caused him to decide against going to Russia, going back to Russia? Just didn't like things.
No,
things
he
there?
didn't. He didn't care for it. And then Norway. Also, how do you pronounce that word? There was an Olympics there.
Oh yeah.
Helen and I went there.
Maybe it's I'm trying to remember the name of the place in Norway that may have had the Olympics.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recall my Olympics, but. So
But
you've really traveled a lot of places.
In China, at the hotel at night when you get to your room, your bed would be turned down and there'd be a chocolate bar on the pillow. A small one, you know.
It's a nice touch.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. Yeah, I've been to quite a few hockey games.
I would imagine in that case.
And he'd always say, you know, after the games, then they'd meet up back and the team would come out to meet the people. And he'd always say to me, "Don't you dare open your mouth." I'm not opening my mouth. And he's a diaper I changed on him or gave him a bottle. When we'd be playing cards on the Wednesday night, he'd a little tyke and he'd eat his diaper change and we'd all take turns changing the diaper. But he didn't want me to mention it to his cohorts.
You'd never live that one down.
You never know. Oh, God. So that's the extent of my life.
Well, that is a very remarkable life, Peg. You've covered a lot of ground, and you've seen so many changes here in Franklin, and you've done a lot of really wonderful things, from working with hospice patients and knitting, and just, by the side of things, being very, very involved with your friends and keeping up with people on a very regular basis.
Yeah, because Helen Mucciarone Morrissey that died 2 months ago, her and I were pals for 93 years.
Wow. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's a long time to be pals with somebody.
It's a special bond you must have with people after 93 years of knowing them.
Yeah, because you know where we lived on E Street, as I said, there was a big field up the back, and they got houses there now. But that's where we used to play football, baseball, you know, red light, all those games. You can hear the kids playing them now.
I know, it's sad. A lot of people don't play outside anywhere near enough.
We used to take the soda cans, make a dents, and put them on your shoes and walk with them. We improvised because nobody had money to buy anything.
Sometimes improvising is where you have the most fun.
Yeah, because Simpsons lived down the street, about 3 houses down from us, and their father worked for Palmerton, the Rhode Island Reds, the Chickens, And they used to cull them, and he said to my mother one day, "Do you think Bill would like a couple of chickens?" He said, "We only drown them in perfect condition." And my mother said, "Sure." So he brought a dozen of the little tiny Rhode Island Reds in the box. My mother put them in back of the stove at night. Come down next morning, and a cat was sleeping with them. She was an old mother cat, and she mothered all the neighbors' cats, but she was in sleeping with the chickens.
Wow.
And that's how we got a little extra money, my brother and I. The neighbors would buy 2 eggs or half a dozen. That's how we got.
It's a great way to get a little bit extra.
2 eggs would be a dime,
money.
you know. So that's that.
Peg, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it.
I enjoyed you too.
Yes, this has been a great conversation.